You step onto a cobblestone street in Montmartre, and the evening wraps around you like a warm coat. The sun is setting behind Sacré-Cœur, and the great white basilica glows pink and gold against a sky that is deepening from blue to violet. The cobblestones beneath your feet are uneven and ancient, polished smooth by a century of footsteps. The street slopes upward, curving gently between old buildings whose facades are the color of cream and pale honey. Iron balconies hang above you, draped with ivy, and the occasional brave geranium still flowering in the autumn cool. This is Montmartre, the hill of artists and dreamers. And tonight, it belongs to you. The air is extraordinary. It carries layers of scent that change with every step. Fresh bread from a boulangerie whose door is still open. The warm, yeasty sweetness drifting out onto the pavement. Coffee, dark and rich, from the cafe on the corner. Cigarette smoke, blue and thin, curling from the table of a man reading a newspaper. And beneath all of these, the particular smell of Paris itself. Stone and water and old wood and something floral. The ghost of a million bouquets carried through these streets over the centuries. You breathe it in. Paris smells the way a beautiful memory feels. Familiar, warm, and slightly out of reach. A painter is packing up his easel at the edge of the Place du Théâtre. He is one of the last, the others having gone home already. His canvas shows a view of the rooftops, zinc and grey, chimneys like exclamation marks against the pink sky. The painting is quick and loose, the work of someone who paints this view every day and still finds something new in it. He folds his easel with practiced movements, tucks the wet canvas under his arm, and walks away, leaving behind a few drops of paint on the cobblestones. Ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, a dot of vermilion. Tiny jewels that will be worn away by morning. The Place du Théâtre is emptying. The tourists are gone. The portrait artists have folded their chairs. What remains is the square itself, old and intimate, its trees casting long shadows in the last light. Café tables still occupy the edges, their checkered cloths weighted against the evening breeze. A waiter collects glasses, stacking them with a gentle clink that carries across the quiet square. An old woman sits alone with a glass of wine, watching the sky change with the patience of someone who has done this 10,000 times. Pigeons peck at crumbs between the tables. The square is exhaling, releasing the day, making room for the night. Sacré-Cœur rises behind you, enormous and white, its Romano-Byzantine domes catching the last direct sunlight and holding it, glowing like a lantern against the darkening sky. The basilica was built on the highest point of Paris, and from its steps you can see the entire city spread below. A vast sea of zinc rooftops broken by church spires, domes, and the dark line of the Seine winding through the center. The Eiffel Tower stands in the distance, a dark iron lattice against the western sky, its tip catching a final spark of gold. Paris from above is a city that looks like it was designed to be beautiful. Because it was. You descend the steps from the basilica, moving downhill into the tangle of narrow streets that make up the heart of old Montmartre. The street lights are coming on, not gas lamps anymore. This is the 1920s. But electric lights in ornate iron fixtures that cast a warm amber glow, not unlike the gas they replaced. The light catches the cobblestones, the cafe windows, the leaves of the plane trees, turning everything golden. The shadows deepen between the buildings. The sky above the rooftops is a strip of deep indigo, the last color before full dark. The transition from day to night in Paris is not sudden. It is a ceremony. Music reaches you, not from any particular direction, but from everywhere and nowhere, the way music moves through the streets of a neighborhood where every other doorway leads to a bar or a dance hall. It is jazz, or the ghost of jazz, a few notes of trumpet carried on the evening air, bending around corners, bouncing off stone walls, arriving at your ears slightly distorted, slightly softened, like a voice heard through water. The 1920s in Paris are drunk on jazz. The music arrived from America, and the city embraced it with the same passion it has always shown for new forms of beauty. The trumpet plays. The city listens. You walk toward the sound. A cafe terrace glows on your left. Round marble tables, wicker chairs, a striped awning rolled back for the evening. The tables are occupied by couples and small groups, their faces lit by the warm light from inside. Wine glasses catch the light, red and amber and pale gold. Conversation is low and animated, the particular French style of talking that uses hands as much as words. A woman laughs, a bright sound that rises above the murmur and floats away. A man lights a cigarette, and for a moment his face is illuminated by the match, sharp and handsome, before the flame dies, and he becomes a silhouette again. You buy a crepe from a street vendor. He makes it on a flat iron plate, spreading the batter in a perfect circle with a wooden tool, then folding it around sugar and lemon with quick, certain movements. The crepe is thin and hot, the edges crisp, the center soft and yielding. The sugar melts into the warm batter, and the lemon cuts through the sweetness with a sharp, clean note. You eat it, standing on the cobblestones, the paper warm in your hands, watching the street life of Montmartre flow around you. A man with an accordion passes, playing something wistful. Two girls in short dresses and cloche hats hurry past, laughing, headed somewhere important. The Moulin Rouge is visible at the bottom of the hill, its famous red windmill turning slowly against the dark sky, outlined in electric lights. In the 1920s, the Moulin Rouge is the beating heart of Parisian nightlife, a cabaret where dancers, musicians, and audiences from every social class come together in a blur of champagne and color. You do not go in. The sound and the light reach you from here, a distant pulse of energy, the heartbeat of a city that is just beginning its night. You stand on the corner and watch the windmill turn, its red blades catching the light, spinning slowly, as if stirring the night air into something intoxicating. A black cat sits on a windowsill, watching you with green eyes. Montmartre has always belonged to cats, artists, and dreamers. The cat is sleek and confident, the kind of cat that appears on cabaret posters, arching its back against a crescent moon. Le Chat Noir, the black cat, was the name of the most famous cabaret in Montmartre's history, and its spirit lives on in every dark doorway and moonlit alley. The cat blinks slowly at you, a gesture of recognition or dismissal, and then turns its attention to something invisible in the shadows. You walk on. The night is young. The music is getting louder. You find a narrow staircase leading down between two buildings, disappearing into the ground like a secret. A hand-painted sign above the entrance reads, Le Petit Jazz. A single red light bulb illuminates the sign, casting the staircase in a warm, bloody glow. You can hear the music clearly now, rising from below. A trumpet playing something slow and blue, accompanied by the soft brush of a drum and the deep, resonant pulse of an upright bass. The sound is warm and close, as if the music is already inside you, vibrating in your chest. You take the first step down. The cobblestones give way to worn wooden stairs. The music gets louder. The night opens beneath you. You descend into the jazz club, and the world above disappears. The staircase turns once, twice, and deposits you in a low-ceilinged basement room that smells of cigarette smoke, red wine, old wood, and something sweet. Perhaps absinthe, perhaps the particular perfume of a woman who passed through an hour ago and left her scent behind. The room is small, perhaps 30 tables packed close together, each one lit by a candle in a glass holder. The candles provide the only light, aside from a single spotlight on the stage, and they give the room a warm, flickering intimacy that no electric light could replicate. You are underground. You are in the heart of the music. The band is on a small stage at the far end of the room, raised perhaps 6 inches above the floor, barely enough to be called a stage at all. There are 4 musicians. A trumpet player, standing, his instrument raised, his cheeks puffed, his eyes closed, playing with the total absorption of a man who has forgotten that anything exists outside the bell of his horn. A pianist, hunched over an upright piano, his fingers moving with a lazy precision that makes the complex seem effortless. A bass player, enormous, embracing his instrument like a dance partner, his fingers walking up and down the strings. And a drummer, barely visible behind his kit, brushing the snare with wire brushes, creating a soft, continuous whisper. The trumpet player takes a solo. The sound is warm and round, golden in color, if colors could be heard. He plays a melody that climbs slowly, note by note, each one placed with care, held for exactly the right duration, then released to make room for the next. There is no hurry in this music. It moves at the pace of breathing, of heartbeats, of the slow pour of wine into a glass. The notes bend slightly, the way a voice bends when it is full of feeling, and then straighten, and then bend again. This is what jazz does. It takes a melody and makes it human. It adds the imperfections that make perfection interesting. You find a table in the corner and sit down. The chair is wooden, simple, slightly uneven. The table is small and round, its surface scarred with cigarette burns and ring stains from 1,000 glasses. A candle flickers in a red glass holder, casting a warm circle of light that reaches your hands, but not your face. A waiter appears immediately, a young man in a white shirt and black vest, and without asking, he places a glass of red wine before you. The wine is dark, almost black in the candlelight, and when you lift it to your lips, it tastes of earth and cherries and the warm sun of the south. The cigarette smoke hangs in the air like a second ceiling, a blue-grey layer that the candlelight turns into a soft, luminous haze. Everyone in the room is smoking. It is 1920s Paris, and cigarettes are as essential as breathing. The smoke gives the room a dreamlike quality, softening the edges of everything, blurring the faces at distant tables, making the spotlight on the stage look like a beam from a lighthouse cutting through fog. You do not mind the smoke. In this room, in this era, it is part of the atmosphere, as much a part of the jazz club experience as the music itself. The piano takes over. The pianist plays chords that are rich and complex, each one a small world of harmony. The notes stacked and interlocked in combinations that resolve and then dissolve into the next. His left hand walks a steady bass line, while his right hand explores, reaching for notes that surprise you, that make you lean forward slightly in your chair, that create a tension that is not anxiety, but anticipation. Jazz piano in the 1920s is a conversation between tradition and invention. The pianist knows the rules. He has spent years learning them. And now, in this dark basement, with the candles flickering and the smoke drifting, he is breaking them. One beautiful chord at a time, a woman sings. She appears from the shadows at the side of the stage, tall, dark-skinned, wearing a dress that catches the spotlight in flashes of silver. Her voice is low and smoky, the kind of voice that seems to come from somewhere deep in the earth, traveling upward through the wood and the stone to reach the air. She sings in English, a song about love and loss and the particular sadness of being far from home. The words do not matter as much as the way she shapes them, bending each vowel, stretching each consonant, turning the language into music before it becomes song. The room is absolutely still. Even the smoke seems to stop moving. You drink your wine slowly. The music enters you through your ears and settles in your chest, a warmth that has nothing to do with alcohol. The bass player plucks a low note that you feel in the soles of your feet. The drummer brushes a rhythm that matches your heartbeat. The trumpet sighs. The piano whispers. The singer holds a note, pure and long, and then lets it go. And the silence that follows is the most beautiful sound in the room. Jazz is the art of space. The notes matter, but the spaces between the notes matter more. In those spaces, the listener fills in their own meaning. You fill in yours. The set ends. The trumpet player lowers his horn and nods. The pianist lifts his hands from the keys. The bass player steps back. The singer smiles and disappears into the shadows she came from. Applause fills the small room, warm and appreciative, the sound of 50 people who have been somewhere together and are now returning. The band members wipe their foreheads, drink water, light cigarettes. They have been playing for an hour, but it felt like 10 minutes. Time in a jazz club does not follow the rules of the clock on the wall. It follows the tempo of the music, and the music tonight was slow and deep and unhurried. You finish your wine and stand. The room sways slightly, not from the wine, but from the transition, from music to silence, from the dark warmth of the club to whatever waits outside. You climb the wooden stairs back to street level and push open the door. The night air hits your face, cool and clean after the smoky interior. The street is quiet. The music has stopped, but it hasn't left you. It sits in your chest like a warm stone, a residue of sound that will stay with you for the rest of the evening. You breathe the Paris air and feel the city settle around you. There is more to see tonight. You walk south through the Latin Quarter, crossing narrow streets lined with bookshops and restaurants, until you reach the Boulevard Saint-Germain. The boulevard is wide and tree-lined, its sidewalks busy even at this hour. People walking, talking, heading to or from somewhere that matters to them. The trees are plane trees, their bark mottled white and green, their branches bare in the autumn night, reaching over the street like the ribs of a cathedral. Street lamps line both sides, their light pooling on the pavement in overlapping circles of amber. You turn a corner, and there it is, Café de Flore, its windows glowing, its green awning visible from a block away. Café de Flore is a temple. Its congregation is artists, writers, philosophers, and anyone who wants to sit in their company and drink good coffee. The interior is Art Deco at its finest, all dark wood and brass and mirrors that multiply the room into infinity. Red banquette seating lines the walls. The ceiling is painted cream and trimmed with gold. Every surface reflects the warm light of the brass sconces, creating a golden glow that makes everyone in the room look beautiful. You take a seat near the window, at a small marble-topped table with curved iron legs. The waiter arrives before you have fully settled. A man of perfect posture and quiet authority. An espresso appears before you. The cup is small and white, the saucer matching, both bearing the cafe's name in dark green script. The espresso is barely a mouthful, dark and concentrated, its surface covered in a thin layer of golden crema. The smell rises from the cup in a concentrated cloud, bitter and sweet and roasted, the distilled essence of coffee. You lift the cup and drink. The flavor is intense, a controlled explosion of bitterness that softens immediately into something rich and warm and complex. The French drink espresso the way the French do everything, with absolute commitment and no apology. One cup. Perfect. Enough. At the next table, two men argue about literature. Their voices are low but intense, their gestures emphatic. One is young and thin, with round spectacles and a manuscript spread on the table before him. The other is older, heavier, smoking a pipe, his opinions delivered with the authority of a man who has been published. They argue about Proust. They argue about Joyce. They argue about whether the novel is dead or merely sleeping. This is the daily theatre of Café de Flore, a performance that requires no ticket, only a table and a drink, and the willingness to listen. Ideas fill the air like smoke. You lean back and let them drift over you. Through the window, the boulevard moves like a slow river. Couples walk arm in arm, their shadows long under the street lamps. A taxi passes, its headlights cutting through the dark. A flower seller carries her basket home, a few unsold roses still visible, their red muted to black in the low light. An old man walks a small white dog, both of them moving at exactly the same unhurried pace. The boulevard is a stage, and everyone on it is a performer, whether they know it or not. Paris in the 1920s is a city that understands that the way you walk, the way you sit, the way you hold your cigarette, is a form of art. The waiter refills your espresso without being asked. He moves through the cafes with a grace that suggests ballet training, or perhaps just decades of practice in a room full of tables. His tray is always level. His steps are precise. He remembers every order without writing anything down. The French waiter in a grand cafe is a professional of the highest order, as skilled in his craft as the writers and artists who sit at his tables. He sets the fresh espresso before you with a small nod. You nod back. This is the only conversation required. Everything else is understood. A woman at a corner table is writing in a notebook. She is alone, her dark hair cut short in the fashionable bob of the era, her eyes focused, her pen moving quickly across the page. She writes without stopping, as if the words are arriving faster than she can catch them. A glass of wine sits untouched beside her notebook. She is one of the many expatriate writers who have come to Paris in the 1920s, drawn by the cheap rent, the good wine, the freedom to write what they want. Paris does not judge. Paris simply provides a table, a drink, and the quiet understanding that whatever you are doing matters, even if no one else agrees. You leave the cafe and step onto the boulevard. The air is cooler now, carrying a hint of the river. You can feel the Seine before you see it, a change in the quality of the air, a subtle dampness, a freshness that cuts through the stone and smoke of the city. The boulevard slopes gently downward toward the water. Your footsteps find a rhythm on the pavement, a comfortable pace that matches the evening, unhurried, observant, alive to every detail. The literary argument fades behind you. The espresso warmth fades in your chest. What remains is the sense of a city that is fully, beautifully awake, even as it approaches midnight. The mirrors on the walls of the cafe multiply the room into infinity. You see yourself reflected from 3 different angles, each reflection slightly different, each one surrounded by the reflections of other patrons, other tables, other glasses of wine and coffee. The mirrors are old, their surfaces slightly uneven, giving the reflections a soft, impressionistic quality, as if the cafe exists not in reality, but in a painting by Renoir. The brass fixtures between the mirrors catch the light and throw it back, creating bright points that seem to float in the reflected space. The effect is disorienting and beautiful. You are in one room and 100 rooms at once. A couple sits at a table near the door, leaning toward each other with the particular intensity of people who are either falling in love or falling apart. Their voices are too low to hear, but their faces tell the story. His earnest, hers guarded, both of them beautiful in the way that only the French seem to manage, even in heartbreak. He reaches across the table and takes her hand. She lets him. The gesture is small and enormous at the same time, a bridge rebuilt across a distance you cannot see. In Paris, love is conducted in cafes, under the watchful eyes of waiters and strangers and mirrors that remember everything. You order a glass of Calvados, the apple brandy of Normandy. It arrives in a small snifter, pale gold, smelling of orchards and autumn and the particular sweetness of fruit that has been transformed by fire and time. You hold the glass in your palm and let the warmth of your hand release the aroma. The first sip is smooth and burning, a gentle fire that travels down your throat and settles in your chest, joining the warmth of the espresso, adding another layer to the evening's collection of tastes. Calvados is the drink of poets and farmers, of people who understand that the best things in life are made slowly from simple ingredients, with patience. The clock on the cafe wall shows 11. The hour has passed without announcement, dissolved in espresso and Calvados and the quiet theatre of the boulevard. The two men have stopped arguing about literature and are now arguing about politics. The woman with the notebook has stopped writing and is staring out the window with the distant expression of someone whose mind is still composing sentences even when the pen has stopped. The waiter continues his elegant patrol. The mirrors continue their multiplication. The cafe is a machine for making time disappear, and it runs perfectly, night after night, fueled by coffee and conversation, and the particular French genius for sitting still. The Seine appears before you, dark and wide, flowing slowly under the bridges of Paris. The water is black tonight, catching the lights of the city and stretching them into long, trembling lines of gold and orange. The left bank, where you stand, slopes gently to the water. Stone steps descend to a lower quay, where in summer lovers sit and students drink wine. Tonight the quay is empty, the stone still warm from the day's sun. You descend and walk along the water's edge, your footsteps echoing off the stone walls, the river murmuring beside you. The bouquinistes are closed. Their green wooden boxes, mounted along the stone parapet of the quay, are latched and padlocked for the night. During the day, these boxes open to reveal used books, old prints, postcards, and maps. The bouquinistes have been selling along the Seine since the 16th century. making this the oldest open-air bookshop in the world. You run your hand along the closed boxes, feeling the rough painted wood beneath your fingers. Each box contains a world of words, locked away until morning. The river flows past, carrying its own stories, older than any book. Notre Dame rises on the Île de la Cité, directly ahead, its towers and flying buttresses lit from below by floodlights that cast the cathedral in a pale golden glow. In the 1920s, Notre Dame is already 700 years old, and it wears its age with the dignity of a building that knows it will outlast everything around it. The rose window is dark, but the stone facades are alive with carved figures, saints and sinners and gargoyles, all of them watching the river from their perches, with expressions that range from holy to horrified. You stop and look up. The cathedral fills the sky. It is the kind of beauty that makes you stand still and forget to breathe. You cross the Pont Saint-Michel, one of the many bridges that span the Seine. The bridge is stone, its arches reflected in the water below, creating dark ovals that the current distorts and reforms. Street lamps line both sides, their iron posts ornate with the kind of decorative excess that the 19th century loved. Scrolls and acanthus leaves and small bronze globes. From the middle of the bridge, you can see in both directions, upstream toward the Île Saint-Louis, downstream toward the Pont Neuf, and the distant glow of the Grand Palais. The river flows beneath you, patient and dark, carrying the reflected lights of the city toward the sea. A bateau-mouche passes beneath the bridge. The tourist boat is lit from end to end, its windows bright rectangles of warm light. Music drifts up from its deck, a waltz, distant and slightly distorted by the water and the wind. Passengers are visible inside, their silhouettes moving behind the glass. The boat's wake sends ripples across the dark water, and the reflected lights of the city shatter and reform in slow, mesmerizing patterns. The bateau-mouche slides downstream like a floating ballroom, carrying its music and its dancers and its light into the darkness beyond the next bridge. You watch it go. The river smooths itself. The reflections reassemble. Silence returns. You continue along the quay on the right bank now. The Louvre is somewhere to your left, its vast courtyard hidden behind stone walls. The Tuileries gardens are dark, their gates closed, the chestnut trees standing in rows like soldiers at rest. The river smells of water and stone, and the faint iron tang of bridges. A fisherman sits on the lower quay, motionless, his line disappearing into the dark water. He's been here for hours, perhaps. He may have caught nothing. He does not seem to mind. Some activities are their own reward. The fishing is not about fish. It is about sitting by a river in the dark and feeling the slow pull of the current against a thin line. The Pont des Arts stretches ahead, a pedestrian bridge of iron and wood, simpler than the stone bridges, lighter, more intimate. In the 1920s, It is a quiet place at night, a bridge where you can stop and stand and look at the river without the rush of traffic. You walk to the center and lean on the iron railing. The metal is cold beneath your forearms. The river spreads in both directions, a dark mirror reflecting the lights of the most beautiful city in the world. Upstream, Notre Dame. Downstream, the Eiffel Tower's faint silhouette. Directly below, the water moves in slow, dark swirls, carrying leaves and light and the reflections of 100 bridges. You stand on the bridge and let the river do what rivers do, which is to carry things away. The sounds of the city are muffled here, reduced to a low hum that blends with the sound of the water. The air is cool and clean, washed by the river, carrying the scent of water and wet stone. You feel the weight of the evening begin to settle. The jazz and the coffee and the wine and the walking, all of it accumulating in your legs and your shoulders. A pleasant heaviness. The river does not hurry. You do not hurry. Paris does not hurry. The night will last exactly as long as it needs to. The Pont Neuf, the oldest bridge in Paris, spans the Seine with its heavy stone arches, each one wide enough for a small room. Despite its name, New Bridge, it was completed in 1607 and has been carrying Parisians across the river for over 3 centuries. Its surface is wide and flat, designed for a time when bridges were public spaces, not just passages. Vendors sold goods here. Performers entertained crowds. Dentists pulled teeth in the open air. Tonight, the bridge is empty, its stone glowing pale in the moonlight, its history sleeping in its stones. You walk across it and feel the centuries compress beneath your feet. The Île de la Cité, the heart-shaped island in the center of the Seine, glows in the darkness. This is where Paris began, a small settlement of the Parisii tribe, 2,000 years ago. Now it holds Notre Dame, the Sainte-Chapelle, the Palais de Justice, and the Conciergerie, where Marie Antoinette spent her last nights. The island is small enough to walk around in 20 minutes, but dense enough with history to fill a lifetime of study. From the bridge, you see its edges, stone walls descending to the water, trees overhanging the quay, the tips of towers rising above the rooftops. A small island holding an enormous weight of memory. A barge is moored along the quay, its deck piled with cargo covered by tarpaulins. A light burns in its small cabin, and you can see the silhouette of a man reading by lamplight. The bargeman lives on the river, traveling between Paris and the provinces, carrying goods upstream and down. His life is measured not in city blocks, but in river miles, in locks and bridges and the changing landscape of the banks. The Seine is his highway, his address, his home. The barge rocks gently in the current, a cradle of wood and water, and the reading man moves with it, his book steady, his world afloat. The smell of the river changes as you walk. Near the bridges, it is cleaner, the current stronger, the water mixing with the cold air that funnels between the stone arches. Between the bridges, it is quieter. the water slower, the smell richer, standard and the particular vegetable scent of the river plants that grow along the banks. The Seine is alive. It carries not just water, but an entire ecosystem, fish and birds, and the tiny organisms that turn a river from chemistry into biology. You lean over the stone wall and look down. The water is dark and impenetrable, keeping its secrets the way all old rivers do. You climb again, back into Montmartre, up the narrow streets that grow steeper as you ascend, past closed shops and dark doorways, past the occasional lit window where someone is still awake, reading or painting or arguing about art. You are looking for a particular door, a particular staircase, a particular room at the top of a building where a painter lives and works. You find it on a quiet street, 6 stories high, the top floor marked by a large skylight that catches the moonlight. The door is unlocked. It is always unlocked. Artists in Montmartre in the 1920s do not lock their doors. There is nothing to steal except ideas, and ideas cannot be locked away. You climb the stairs. They are narrow and wooden, each step creaking under your weight, the sound echoing in the stairwell. The building is old, its walls plaster over stone, cracked in places, revealing the lathe beneath. The smell changes as you ascend, cooking on the lower floors, tobacco on the middle floors, and at the top, the unmistakable smell of an artist's studio, turpentine, linseed oil, stretched canvas, and the faint chemical sweetness of fresh paint. By the time you reach the 6th floor, you are slightly out of breath. A door stands open. Warm light spills onto the landing. You step inside. The Atelier is a single room under the roof. The ceiling is slanted, following the pitch of the building, and set into it is a large skylight, a rectangle of glass through which you can see the sky. Tonight, the sky is clear, and the stars are visible through the glass, slightly dimmed by the city's light, but still present, still bright enough to make you look up. The room is small and cluttered in the particular way that only an artist's studio can be cluttered. Every surface covered with something that is either art or about to become art. Canvases lean against every wall. Jars of brushes stand on tables. Tubes of paint lie scattered like spent ammunition. A half-finished painting sits on an easel near the skylight, positioned to catch the natural light during the day. It shows a woman, her face turned away, her dark hair falling over one shoulder. The background is the rooftops of Paris, rendered in loose, confident brushstrokes that capture the zinc and grey and chimney pot skyline without attempting to detail it. The painting is good. It has the particular quality of work that is being made honestly, without pretension, by someone who paints because they cannot stop. The artist is not here tonight. He is out, perhaps at a cafe, perhaps at a jazz club, perhaps walking the same streets you have walked. His absence fills the room like a held breath. You look through the skylight. The rooftops of Paris spread before you, an endless landscape of zinc and slate. broken by chimney pots that rise like small towers. The moon has risen, nearly full, and its light turns the rooftops silver grey. In the distance, the dome of Sacré-Cœur glows white, and further still, the Eiffel Tower's dark lattice is visible against the sky. From up here, Paris looks like a city that was built for looking at. Every rooftop, every chimney, every iron balcony contributes to a composition so beautiful it seems intentional. The city is its own greatest work of art, and everyone who lives in it is both artist and audience. The smell of paint is strongest near the easel. Tubes lie on a wooden table, some squeezed nearly flat, others barely used. You read their labels: Blanc de Titane, Terre de Sienne brûlée, Bleu Outremer, Jaune de Cadmium. The names are French because the best paint in the world comes from France. Each tube contains color in its purest, most concentrated form, pigment ground fine and suspended in oil, waiting to be spread across canvas by a brush held in a human hand. You pick up a tube of cobalt blue and unscrew the cap. The paint inside is the color of the sky at the moment between twilight and dark, deep and luminous. You screw the cap back on and set it down. A bottle of wine sits on the windowsill, half empty, its cork pushed loosely back in. Beside it, a glass with a thin residue of red at the bottom, a plate with the remains of a meal, some bread, some cheese, an apple core. The artist eats simply, drinks modestly, and pours everything else into the work. This is the romantic poverty of Montmartre, the willingness to live with less in order to make more. The garret is cold in winter and hot in summer. The water comes from a shared tap on the landing below. But the skylight provides the best light in Paris, and the view is one that money cannot buy. You sit in the artist's chair, an old wooden thing with a canvas seat, and look up through the skylight at the stars. The room is quiet. The building is quiet. From 6 floors below, the sounds of the street reach you as a faint murmur, the distant pulse of a city that is still very much alive. But up here, in this small room under the roof, with the smell of paint and the view of the stars, the city feels far away. You are in a pocket of stillness, a space that exists outside of time, where the only things that matter are light and color, and the slow, patient work of making something beautiful from nothing. Sketches are pinned to the wall above the easel. Quick pencil drawings on cheap paper, studies of hands, faces, street scenes, the curve of a bridge, the shape of a rooftop. These are the artist's daily exercises, the equivalent of a musician's scales, done not for display but for practice, for the simple discipline of looking closely and recording what is seen. Some are good, some are mediocre. All of them show the hand of someone who draws every day, who cannot walk down a street without wanting to capture it on paper. The sketches are the real diary of this room, more honest than any journal, recording not events, but the way one pair of eyes sees the world. A gramophone sits on a shelf in the corner, its brass horn dull with dust. A stack of records leans beside it, their paper sleeves worn and creased. You lift the needle arm and place it on the outermost groove of the top record. The turntable begins to spin, hand-cranked, its speed slightly uneven. The sound that emerges is warm and scratchy. A jazz recording, a trumpet and piano playing something slow. The recording quality primitive, but the music unmistakable. The sound fills the small atelier, bouncing off the canvases and the slanted ceiling. And suddenly, the room is less empty. The artist may be gone, but his music is here. His taste, his mood, the soundtrack of his solitude. Through the skylight, you watch a cloud cross the moon. It moves slowly, a dark shape against the luminous disk, dimming the moonlight for a moment before passing on. The rooftops below shift from silver to shadow and back to silver. The cloud is the only thing moving in the sky. Everything else is fixed. The stars, the moon, the dark horizon. From this atelier, generations of artists have watched the sky. Monet watched clouds. Renoir watched sunlight. Utrillo watched the rain on Montmartre's streets. The skylight is a frame, and the sky is a painting that changes constantly. A masterpiece that no one can buy, and no one can own. You stand at the window and look down at the street below. From 6 floors up, the street lamps are small golden dots. The cobblestones a dark texture. The rare pedestrian a moving shadow. A couple walks hand in hand, their footsteps inaudible at this height, their heads tilted toward each other. A cat crosses the street in 3 quick bounds. A bicycle leans against a wall, forgotten or abandoned, its chrome catching the lamplight. The street from above is a stage seen from the gallery. The actors small, the drama compressed, the details smoothed by distance into something simple and gentle. You watch until the couple turns a corner and the street is empty again. You descend from the atelier and return to the streets. It is late now, past midnight, and Montmartre is quieter than before. The cafes are closing, their awnings being rolled up, their chairs being stacked, their lights being dimmed one by one. The streets are emptier. Your footsteps echo more clearly on the cobblestones. The air has cooled further, and you pull your collar up against the chill. But the night is not cold. It is the perfect temperature for walking, cool enough to keep you alert, warm enough to keep you comfortable. Paris in autumn. There is no better time to be alive. From somewhere behind a closed door, a trumpet plays. A musician is practicing, or perhaps just playing for himself, alone in a room, the notes escaping through a window left open for the night air. The melody is slow and melancholy, a song you almost recognize, something about love or loss or the passage of time. The trumpet's voice is pure and unaccompanied, naked without the piano and bass and drums that supported it in the club. It is more beautiful this way. A single voice, speaking in music, saying the things that words cannot say. You stop and listen. The trumpet plays on, unaware of its audience. The notes rise into the night and dissolve among the stars. The last jazz club on the street is closing. You can see through the window as the musicians pack their instruments. The trumpet goes into a battered black case lined with faded blue velvet. The piano lid is closed. The drum brushes are slipped into a cloth bag. A bartender wipes the counter with a slow, circular motion, polishing the wood to a shine that no one will see until tomorrow. The candles on the tables are blown out, one by one, and each one that goes dark makes the room a little smaller, a little closer to sleep. The last candle goes out. The window goes dark. Another night of jazz has ended, and Paris has absorbed it the way a garden absorbs rain. The streets of Montmartre are yours now. No one else walks here at this hour. The street lamps still burn, casting their amber circles on the cobblestones. But between the circles, the darkness is deep and soft. The buildings stand close together, their facades dark, their windows shuttered, their occupants asleep. You walk slowly, in no hurry to arrive anywhere, because there is nowhere to arrive. The walking is the destination. The night air is the entertainment. The echo of your footsteps on the cobblestones is the music. You pass a fountain in a small square. The water still runs, a thin stream falling from a brass spout into a stone basin. The sound is quiet and constant, the nighttime equivalent of the cafe conversation and street music that filled these spaces during the day. The fountain does not sleep. It runs all night, every night, a small, faithful voice in the silence. You stop and cup your hands beneath the spout. The water is cold and clean. You drink. The cold water clears the taste of wine and espresso and crepe and cigarette smoke, resetting your palate, preparing you for the last flavor of the night, which is simply the taste of cold, clear water on a warm evening in Paris. You find a bench on a terrace overlooking the city. From here, all of Paris is visible, a vast field of lights stretching to the horizon in every direction. The Eiffel Tower stands in the middle distance, its iron lattice now dark, its lights extinguished for the night. The Seine is a dark ribbon curving through the city, its bridges visible as lines of light connecting the two banks. The domes and spires rise above the rooftops, Sacré-Cœur behind you, the Pantheon to the south, the distant tower of Saint-Sulpice. The city is quiet. 5 million people are asleep. The lights they left burning are the only evidence that anyone lives here at all. The jazz is gone. The cafes are closed. The artists are asleep in their garrets. The writers have put down their pens. The singers have hung up their silver dresses. The trumpet is in its case. The piano is silent. The bass rests in its corner. The city that was so alive with music and conversation and art has settled into stillness. But the stillness is not empty. It is full of everything that happened tonight, absorbed into the walls and the streets and the river, stored in the cobblestones like heat, ready to be released again tomorrow, when the city wakes and the music starts and the cafes open and Paris becomes once again the most beautiful city in the world. You lean back on the bench and close your eyes. The night air is cool on your face. The city hums its low, sleeping hum, the sound of 1,000,000 quiet breaths, 1,000,000 turning dreams. Somewhere, a clock strikes 3. Somewhere, a cat crosses a rooftop. Somewhere, the Seine flows past Notre Dame, carrying moonlight to the sea. And here, on this bench, on this hill, in this city, in this decade, you rest. The jazz has made your heart warm. The wine has made your mind soft. The walking has made your body tired. And Paris, generous Paris, extravagant Paris, Paris that gives too much and asks too little, has given you exactly what you needed. A night you will carry with you forever. Sleep now. Paris will be here in the morning. It always is. The accordion player is still out. You hear him before you see him. A wheezing, melancholy sound that drifts around the corner and finds you in the empty street. He is old, his instrument older, its bellows patched with tape, its buttons worn smooth by decades of fingers. He plays a musette waltz, the traditional music of the Parisian streets, slow and sweet, and slightly out of tune in a way that makes it more beautiful. The accordion is the voice of old Paris, the Paris of the working class, of dance halls and wine bars and Sunday afternoons by the canal. He plays for no one. He plays for himself. He plays because the night is empty and his accordion is full. You pass the Moulin Rouge one final time. The windmill has stopped turning. The lights are out. The doormen have gone home. The great cabaret is as dark and silent as any other building on the street, its famous facade reduced to a shadow. In a few hours it will wake again. The lights will come on. The windmill will turn. The dancers will dance. And the music will pour out into the street like champagne from an opened bottle. But for now, it sleeps. Even the Moulin Rouge needs rest. Even the most famous nightclub in the world eventually turns off its lights and admits that the night has won. The first light of dawn appears in the east. A thin line of pale grey above the rooftops, barely distinguishable from the darkness around it. It is not yet light. It is the memory of light, the promise that the sun still exists behind the curve of the earth. The stars are still visible. The street lamps still burn. But something has shifted. The night is no longer deepening. It has reached its lowest point and begun imperceptibly to turn. The birds know it. A single sparrow begins to sing from a chimney pot, a thin, brave thread of sound in the vast silence. It is the first voice of the new day. All the others will follow. A baker opens his door. You smell it before you see him, the warm, yeasty perfume of bread rising in an oven. The first smell of the new day, the same smell that has started every Parisian morning for 1,000 years. The baker is a small man in a white apron, flour on his hands, his face red from the heat of the ovens. He places a tray of baguettes in the window, their crusts golden and cracked, their shape long and elegant, as perfectly Parisian as the Eiffel Tower. The smell of fresh bread is the signal. The night is officially over. Paris is waking up. And you, warm with jazz and wine, and the memory of a city that never runs out of beauty, Finally, close your eyes and sleep.